Oh, now it says it's recording.
Okay, so we're recording here. Well, hopefully I won't run out of disk space. Let me get back to share screen. So everybody's at this step right now. You're in CMYK and you've added a color background, right?
Yep.
Now what normally happens with a CMYK printing process is that Photoshop will separate all this stuff out so that whatever it takes to create this color right here, wherever the, oops, sorry, wherever the pink, wherever the pink sits on top of the purple, it's going to remove all the ink that would alter the color in CMYK of the pink. The same with this rust burgundy color. If it were sitting on top, it would remove all that. But we're going to a different kind of printing process with spot color. And so what we're going to try and do is, first of all, take a look at them and see where things print one on top of another. And when you're printing with pure color, not CMYK, you have to make sure that one pure color doesn't sit on top of another pure color unless you mean for it to do that, which can be a nice effect. But in general, we have to do what's called undercolor removal. That's a very common thing with black ink because otherwise you get too much of the combination of colors pooling. And what happens is the black ink kind of smears and stuff. So what they do is, it's called undercolor removal, and Photoshop automatically gets rid of all the extra ink that would cause the black to pool. In this case, we need to just get rid of the colors that when one color sits on top of another will alter the color of the whole thing. Now the way to do that is, let's see, for undercolor removal, we must have our final design completed. Most ink, 100%, most inks that we work with are not 100% opaque, even the spot colors. They are somewhat transparent. So what happens is when you imagine putting down cyan on a red background piece of paper, because it's translucent and not opaque, what's going to happen is it's not going to look like cyan. It's going to look like cyan with red added into it. And in a subtractive process, it makes it darker. What we're going to do is select layers and multiply. So what I want to do is I want to select Burgundy Gaga, and I'm going to select Rose. And can you see what I'm doing? And I'm going to come up here. This is just for you to see what would happen. We go to normal here, the blending mode. I'm going to make it multiply. You see what happens to the different colors now? What happens is, like, see how the K got really dark? That's normal. And that's really dark. You see how the magenta rose turned bright orange red instead of pink?
Mm-hmm.
And the burgundy, wasn't a big shift in the burgundy, but it's still a shift in the burgundy. What's happening here is we are seeing, this is purple, the way I want it. But because on the white paper, the first thing I did was I put down at the bottom layer all that orange. What I'm seeing inside the K is what happens when you put purple ink on top of orange ink. It gets noticeably darker. And the pink rose, look at it where you can see, look at it here and over here when I do the multiply. You see how it pretty much disappears on top of the purple ink? And then the yellow ink underneath makes it orange-red. So if we were to print from the plates we've got right now, from the layers we've got right now, this is what it would look like. And we don't like that. So what we have to do is the UCR, undercolor removal. And it's a step-by-step process, but it's crucial to getting your stuff printed properly when you're doing spot color, solid color. Okay, So that's what we want. What we have to do is work with our channels. To avoid multiplying the colors, we have to knock out any of the overlaps. Everybody understands what knockout means?
Yeah.
We remove the ink so we can see the white. And once there's white there, we put down the pink on top of white, it'll stay pink. The magenta stays magenta, the purple stays purple. Okay, so starting from your background layer. That's this orange color right here. What we need to do is you need to create one more channel over here. And in that new channel, we want it to be, in my case, it's orange. Whatever color you chose. Tessa, what color did you make the background?
Pink.
Pink, okay. So what we want to do is, in this background layer, create a new channel, put it at the bottom there, like that. And what you want to do is select all, and because we want 100% of the pink, 100% of the orange, remember channels only really exist as black or white or some shade of gray. So what you want to do is fill that entire background channel with black. Everybody get that?
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody not get it yet?
I'll have to do it later.
Yeah. That's why I'm recording it, and hopefully it'll record properly and you can play it back later.
Yeah.
Okay, so everybody's got a bottom layer that's all black, right?
Bottom channel or bottom
I'm
layer?
sorry, yes. Bottom channel.
Okay.
Everybody except me. Select all. Option delete. Okay. So that's what your bottom background channel should look like. So what we need to do is we want to make sure, I'm going to deselect, we want to make sure that every place there's another color besides your background color, in my case orange, I want to remove the ink from there so it's white. So I'm going to start by selecting the background channel. And now what we're going to do is we're going to select, then we're going to activate, then we're going to delete, and then we're going to deselect, and then we're going to check visibility. We'll go back over them, don't worry. So you remember, if I click on this right here, that activates a channel, right?
Right.
So if I were to select that and activate the channel, it selects the channel and activates it. But I don't want to select the K channel. I want to stay in my background channel. So the other way of activating a channel was to grab it and pull it down on top of that circle. So go to the channel above, the letter channel above the background, grab it, activate it. It work for everybody?
Yep.
Okay. And now we've selected the channel, we've activated the channel above it, and now we want to delete. So just make sure over here that these are your default color chips, black and white. So white should be your background color. Then just delete. Okay, and then you deselect. And now just turn on the visibility for that. For me, it's the K channel. Don't select the channel, just turn on the visibility. And you see I've got two clearly different colors. These are just preview colors, but there's no overlapping of color there. Is that how yours worked?
Yeah.
Okay, you should only see two colors. No third color created by an overlap. So turn off the K layer, or my K layer, and we're going to do it again, except this time we want to make sure we select the background, and we want to remove the rows. I'm going to remove the rows this time. So instead of selecting the rows channel, I just grab it and pull it down and activate it. And that's where the ink for the rose is supposed to go. And so I delete again. And now I've made a white spot within the background orange color for that magenta ink to go. You get any idea of what we're doing here?
Mm-hmm.
We're clearing a path for the other inks. And this time we can turn on the rose visibility, the K visibility. Now you'll see if I turn off K, I've only got 2 colors in white, which is good. As soon as I turn on the K, there's an overlap right in here. We're going to resolve that in a few minutes. What it means is we have to go back through the layers again, starting on channels again, starting with the K and knocking out the K. So we're going to turn the K off. That looks good. There's no overlap. Turn off the rose. So this, everything that's black here, remember that's like a cookie cutter, a stencil, or a screen. Everything that's black here is going to be 100% of the background color. Anything white will be 0% of the background color. So the last thing to do is the Gaga layer. So I grab Gaga, drop her down there. And now it's helpful if you do Command H, so you don't see the marquee, you don't see the selection, but you can leave it on if you want to. So now I'm going to delete from the background every place there's 100% or any degree of Gaga ink. So delete, and you see what I get? Now it's all, that's where the orange is going to show up. In our case, we used halftone dots. So everything's either white or black. If we had done it with different levels of gray, then different amounts of the orange would be allowed through. But now we've got all the orange removed that was altering the colors. So if I turn on Gaga, visibility, I can see, not great color choices there, but you can see there's a light green and a dark green, a yellow green and a dark green. So that's my orange. So I'm going to first save. All right. Now, if I turn my visibility on for all my channels, you still see overlaps. There's overlapping in the K, there's overlapping in the rows, all that stuff. So we need to go back, turn off the visibility in all these, and this time we're going to go through the K and we're going to remove all of the purple ink that would interfere with the spot colors. So that's where the purple would be. I don't need to work with the background because I've already knocked the K out of the background. But I do need to knock the rows out of the K. So I grab the rose, drop it on there. So I've got it selected, and then I'm going to delete it. And now deselect. And now the K has a hole in it. And that's for the color of the rose. So if I click on that, the visibility, you can see I have 2 separate colors. There's no third color caused by an overlap. And then the last thing I need to do is Gaga goes across the K. So I need to remove all the purple that's going to be underneath the Gaga color, the burgundy color. Grab it, drag it, drop it. Command H so I can see it, and then delete it. So all those dots, those circles have been removed from the purple. So now I won't get the burgundy on top of the purple, which gives me a really dark purple instead of burgundy. Save it. So what do we do next?
Tree.
We'll go to the next layer up. For me, it's the rose. It's the second layer down. Okay, and I'm going to activate that layer. I'm going to take a look at Gaga, and you can see where the green ink or the green preview from Gaga overlaps the rows. And you can see there's a change in color right there. That's what would happen with our inks. It would darken unless we got rid of the area of the rows where the Gaga dots are supposed to go. So I turn that off, the visibility off. Don't select, but grab Gaga and pull it down. Command H and delete. So all of the color that's supposed to be there for the rows, but had the Gaga burgundy on top of it, has been cleared out. So I'm not going to get the burgundy on top of the pink, which would kill the pink. Is making sense so far?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay, so now what we've got are these 4 channels. Okay, now these are all preview colors, but the K you can see is kind of a pinky color here. With the green goes across from here to here, you notice the green doesn't change color. That's because we knocked out every color behind it, every bit of ink behind it. The same with the rose, the same with Gaga. Their colors are consistent wherever they appear. And that's the whole idea. Now, make sure you save this.
My letter won't appear. Is that because I selected the actual layer, I mean the channel, instead of dragging it into the activation slot?
Sorry, try that again, please.
My letter, so I have all the channels selected, but my letter won't show up. Is that because I selected the letter channel instead of dragging it into the activation?
Okay, let me give you the screen. Go ahead.
It says host disabled screen share.
There we go.
Okay. So you can see that all my channels are activated and the letter is not there. But when I turn this off, there's a letter.
Yes, because let's see. This happened to me last night too, and I'm trying to remember how I fixed that.
Is it because I clicked the actual channel instead of dragging it into the activation slot like I should have by accident?
You click the channel?
Like, so you know how you say don't select a channel,
Right.
Rather drag it into the activation.
Right.
Is that what I did?
Probably, yes.
Okay. Do you want me to go back and then see if that works?
Can you fix it quickly?
Let's see. New channel.
That's your background channel, right?
So yeah, fill with black.
Good.
Oh boy.
Take your time. Oops. So
Okay,
let's
so
see, you're in
that's
layers right there, right?
Yeah, I accidentally deleted my fill color layer. So that's a fill color layer. So now I go back into channels, go to the last channel, and then
drag the letter A down on top.
Delete.
And delete it. Okay, that gives you your hole for the letter A.
Yep. And then
okay, what you should do is, so you're in the watch layer now.
Yeah.
Hold on a second. What I want you to do is check the visibility. So put that one back.
Not weird?
Oh, let's see. Double click on the Alpha 1 channel, please. And check your preview color. Okay. Now double click on letter A and check your preview color. They're the same. So change the color. Okay.
There we
go. Okay, good.
Got it.
Now do the watch.
Oops.
Good. But before you go any further, make sure you always do a color check. So deselect. No, you,
The,
okay.
the wash is fine. It was just the letter. Everything else is fine. It's just the letter that was
Okay.
messed up. So let me stop sharing. Why do I stop sharing? There we go. Okay.
All right. Good. Yeah, it's always really important that every time you, first of all your channels should be different colors, previews, but also that I always, when I do that selection and delete, I always turn back on that layer visibility to make sure it looks right. I never assume it's right, because whenever I assume it's right, it's going to be wrong.
Yeah.
All right, so background's done. We remove Gaga overprinting, fix rows and Gaga overprint. I got a bunch of notes. Okay. Now what we want to do is we want to select the colors with the eyedropper in the previous version, in the layers, so we get the right colors. Now what I mean by that is, we might be able to do it in the same version. Go up to the CMYK. Yeah, we can do it in this version. We'll go up to CMYK, and we want to get the Pantone matching system color for each one of our CMYK created colors, because we're not going to be using CMYK. So if you need to, you can zoom in, and I want to get the right color for the orange. So I use my eyedropper, hover over the orange, and click on it. And you see how over here, the orange appears as my foreground color? Double click. Everybody following? And then you go to your color libraries. Now, our color libraries, there's a bunch of color libraries. This is one, I don't know if you can see it or not, but it's one color library. There's all kinds of them, and not just Pantone ones. But if you click on color libraries, you'll see up here the book. And the book we're going to use is Pantone Solid Coated. What that means is, there are, within Pantone system of their basic colors, there's one book for solid coated paper and one for solid uncoated paper. And you see that there's a C right here. That means it's for coated paper. Now what coated paper is paper that they make the paper, and in the process of manufacturing, they run it through like a gigantic printing press, but it goes through a bath, a slurry of what is essentially water and clay. There's all kinds of new substances they use, but it used to be water and clay. And then they'd run it through these superheated, super pressure rollers that would just compress it right down. And if you feel like the cover of a magazine, how it's got a slick cover, that's coated paper. Most postcards are coated paper. Most of the stuff we print on is coated paper. But there's still plenty of things that are uncoated, and there is a noticeable difference in color between the same ink. So Pantone 1345C and Pantone 1345U are exactly the same ink. But when you preview it, see if I can find uncoated, solid uncoated. You see how everything changed all of a sudden there? All those colors are more muted. These are stronger and more brilliant colors because of the coating. The
Yeah, the
coating,
ink spreads out, right? It spreads the ink evenly over the paper. That's what the coating does.
pardon?
Doesn't the coating spread the ink evenly over the paper so that the colors are brighter and they come out
No,
more?
it's actually there's a substance that they smash into the paper under heat and pressure that causes the coating. And there's a rating for the coating as well. So it's the biggest difference is you can feel, like I said, with most, a very slick surface. That's a heavily coated paper. And then newspaper, drawing paper is uncoated. So the ink soaks into that uncoated paper, and that alters the color of the ink. And then the coated paper, the ink actually creates a dome of ink when it goes down, the dot.
Yeah.
And it sits up and it goes through a dryer right away. And so the color is much actually thicker, and it sits above the paper. And so you get a much more brilliant color. So that's how the ink changes color when it really is the same ink. But we're going to use solid coated colors. If you go to the list, you'll see there's a whole bunch. There's metallic coated, color bridge uncoated, all these, there's different color systems altogether. True Match is a competitor of Pantone that's used mostly in, I think, in Asia.
What's
So what
the
happens is,
difference between solid coated? What's
Pardon?
the difference between the solid coated and the solid plus coated?
solid, which I couldn't get the second one.
It's solid coated and then Pantone plus solid coated. It's like towards the bottom.
It's a different kind of ink.
Oh, okay.
So there's Pantone Plus, which, let's see. Can you see this book?
Yeah.
I can't tell because I don't have the, but in, well, maybe I can tell. Right down at the bottom, it says the Plus series. And it's a different ink
okay.
series. The numbers don't correspond. They all start with, looks like 7,000 or 600. It's a different kind of ink. So it gives you a different look. It's for different uses. Let's see. Doesn't have the explanation on here, otherwise I give it to you right away. But Pantone Plus is different than Pantone Solid, regular solid. So that's why the colors are different. So you need to know, there's a lot involved in printing that we don't cover because either your printer does it for you or it just doesn't apply to 99% of the stuff that we do. But everybody understands now we're going to be using the solid coated because Photoshop does a nice job, or it's designed to simulate whether it's on white coated paper or white uncoated paper. And it tells me right here that the closest Pantone color to the one that I have in CMYK is 1375 coated. So what we're going to do is write that down. So write down, do that with your background color, then hit cancel. And then we're going to go use our eyedropper and we're going to get the other colors. I'm going to grab the burgundy, double click on the chip, go to my color libraries, and that one tells me 1815. My glasses on, I could see. 1815C. Cancel. And go over to the magenta. Double click. (219C). And then purple. Cancel. Purple, blue, blue violet, whatever you want to call it. Color libraries. 2695. So does everybody have all four colors selected?
Yes.
Oh, good. PMS to 19C, cancel, go to season, second version. Make sure you save this. And this time I want you to do a save as. And save it as the same name, but at the end, before the suffix, before the dot, put in underscore spot. So it's the title underscore spot dot PSD. Got it?
Yeah.
All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to convert this to spot color. Right now, it's still a CMYK document. Even though we have channels set up here, it's not going to create CMYK document. I mean, it's not going to create a spot color document. Just check my notes. And so go to save as, second version, convert to spot color for the line channels. All right, let's try this. Let's go to, let me try it first. I'm going to go to image, mode, multi-channel. Like I said, don't do it yet. Flatten visible layers and discard hidden channels. Okay, good. We got just the background, and then what we want to do is actually get rid of Yep, that's what we want to do. Okay, let me back that up. Just didn't want to totally screw you up. Make sure you're in the underscore spot. And what we're going to do is change the type of document. So we're going to go from from CMYK, from process, to a different mode. Oops. Image, where was I? Channels, okay. Image, mode, yep. So under image, mode, right now you can see we're in CMYK. We could be in RGB, but we're in CMYK right now. We're going to change this into what's called a multi-channel document. And what that means is it doesn't use layers per se for color. It's going to only use channels to communicate color. So choose multi-channel document. And it's going to flatten in all the visible layers and discard anything that's hidden. That's the layers. It's not going to do that to the channels. We have to do that to the channels. So hit OK and watch what happens to your layers. And we're in the background. Let's double click on the background just to unlock it. It doesn't let us. We only get one layer, so it's not going to, doesn't have to unlock it. Okay, so all that stuff is gone. Right now, it can still show us cyan, magenta, yellow, black. I should probably zoom out. So it's still displaying cyan, magenta, yellow, black. Those were the amounts of those colors in CMYK. What we want to do is get rid of all that CMYK information and only use our channel information to communicate color to the printer. Making sense? Yep, okay. So we can select CMYK and we can delete, trash those channels. And so now we have 4 channels, and those 4 channels are still in the preview colors that I had in them. So it doesn't look like it, except if we go one channel at a time, these channels are accurate. This is what I had for the rose, what you've got for the tree, whatever, the K, the letter. So all that information is still intact. There's 4 colors being used. And if we were to send this just like this to a printer, we could actually send a note that said everything, when you make the plate for Gaga, when you put the Gaga plate into the press, just make sure it's got burgundy ink with it, 1815, Pantone. And that would actually, he'd be able to work with that information. He wouldn't be happy, but he could work with it. But what we're going to do is we want to make our printer happy. We're going to go first to the background layer. Right now it's black, so everything that's black is 100% of this color. Whatever ink is put on this plate, it's 100%. So we're going to double click. Okay, you see channel options come up? And we're going to choose spot color. And then once we've chosen spot color, we want 100% of that spot color. And we're going to click on the color chip and we're going to choose our color. So my orange was 1375. So you can see my color picker. We don't want to be in a color picker. We want to be in a color library. So it chooses from the Pantone library. And now here, there's no dialog box you can type into. You don't need to. I just need 1375. So you just type in 1375 relatively quickly. And there's the color. I tell it okay. It's a spot color. It's Pantone 1375. Okay. It's still black because we don't get those preview colors until we turn on at least one more channel. So the next thing we want to do is we want to go to the next channel up. And now when you look at these channels here, this is actually exactly the way the colors are laid down. It's going to lay down this as the first color on the bottom of the, call it the ink stack. So it's a first color that gets put down. Then they print the purple. Then they're going to print the rose. Then they're going to print the Gaga layer. So in K, let's see, my purple is 2695. So I double click. Still K, spot color, 100%. Click on the chip, and then I'm going to type in 2695. There's my purple. Okay. Again, it's still black, but if I turn on the orange, now I've got a display of both colors, where they're going to fall at 100%. Now, never forget the fact that the screen always lies. Okay, especially like what I'm seeing on mine could look totally different on Andres because he's on a PC. But every Mac screen is going to be a little bit different. So you never want to work without one of these when you're doing spot color. Because even if my orange came up purple, if I tell the printer on that plate that it's supposed to be 1375 orange, he's going to put down, no matter what the screen tells him, he's going to ink it up with orange 1375. It won't be that far off. But from screen to screen to screen, you've seen, you know, the two big TVs in Studio 4? The one where I stand near, has a little more muted. I think they're a little more accurate colors, and the one at the other end of the screen is much more brilliant. In fact, it's nicer to look at, more fun to look at, but the colors are probably just a little bit too bright and saturated. And those are just two TVs in the same room, bought in the same year. So that's why we always use those color chip books. Okay, the next thing, we go to Rose. Double click on Rose, spot color, 100. And the Rose is 219. Okay. And Gaga is 1815. Spot color, 100%. And then we just type in 1815. And there's my burgundy cordovan, kind of rusty, basically unattractive color. All right, so I've got all four of my channels. And so if I then turn on the visibility, everything, I mean, it looks just like what we had with the CMYK. The only difference would be if there was a slight color shift. Sometimes you cannot get exactly the CMYK equivalent as you can with Pantone, because you're displaying on screen, looks one way. The CMYK has got a certain, what they call color gamut. It's a box of crayons. It's a very, very big box of crayons. But the Pantone box of crayons is also very, very, very big, but they may not have exact matches. So you're going to get the closest possible match to it. So we want to save that. Now, that's what it's going to look like to us when it's printed. What it's going to look like to the printer is he's going to get one metal plate that looks like that. In fact, it won't have black on it even. It's going to be, if he's using plates and not digital printing, then what he's going to do is he's going to see this aluminum plate, basically, a metal plate, and he's going to see dots that are raised and areas that are sunken. The black areas are the areas that are raised. Did Mary go through with you guys how printing works, offset printing? Yes? No? How a press works? She did?
A little bit.
A little bit?
I think a little bit.
She didn't go into like a lot of detail, but she mentioned it.
Okay, well, I'm going to put a note that we'll go over that on another day, but the basic idea of a printing press is that you have a roller and you strap a metal plate, flat metal plate, onto this roller. I'm being careful so I don't spill it. Hang on one second. Okay. The way they make the plates is they take a piece of metal, flat piece of metal, and it's essentially a gigantic laser writer, and it's got a coating on it. And what happens is when the laser writer puts down all these dots, and the laser hits a spot, if the laser hits a spot, it carves out an area of the metal plate. If it doesn't hit a spot, it leaves a bump, a raised surface. They're not much difference in them. It's millimeter, maybe a millimeter, maybe probably less nowadays. But all the black spots are raised bumps, and all the white spots are where the laser carved it down a little bit. They take that metal plate, this metal plate here, it's a flexible metal plate, and every printing press has a big set of 6 set of rollers on it, most of them commercial ones. They take this, and using hardware, they strap that metal plate onto the drum, and the drum revolves. And so every time it revolves, it puts ink down. It's called offset because it takes the ink from the plate and puts it on something else, on another surface. That's the offset. And then as it rolls around, it's coated with ink again and squeegeed off, and every time it goes through, that's how it prints. So what's happening is that metal plate, when you look at it, it's silver, no matter what. There's a slight color variation because of the coating. But the printer doesn't even see black and white like this. He just sees raised dots and sunken parts to the plate. So he straps that on, and then it runs through all the different drums for the press. I'll get a whole video on offset printing for you. So he doesn't really even see this. But essentially, he either sees a raised area or not raised area. There's no half raised dots. So everything is based on dots, whether it's CMYK or offset or anything else, or spot color. So every place you see black here is going to pick up ink, and that ink will be pushed down into the paper, and it'll go on to the next roller. Normally, it's CMYK are the inks we're using. We'd use the exact same press, except what happens is when they put these plates on there, instead of having this be cyan, this one magenta, this one yellow, this one black, it's just, this is going to have burgundy ink, Pantone 1815. The next roller, the next font, it's called a fount, gives us 219, the pink ink. This one applies the purple ink to the plate, and this one applies the orange ink to the plate. So it's exactly the same press doing exactly the same thing, only we're using specialized ink. So that the physical process is the same. The results are very different. So this, when he prints, the first pass on this piece of paper would be just the orange Now, it doesn't display the color until you put a second one on, but everything you see black would be orange. And then as that paper goes through the press, it would put down the purple. And if you stop the press right there, this is what your paper would look like. And the third drum puts down the pink. And that's the final print. So now we've got these beautiful, brilliant colors that there's no way to reproduce in CMYK. Some are just because you can't produce that color in CMYK, so you have to use dots, and that weakens the color. And other colors are just not present in CMYK. If you're ever doing a color and you use the color picker, let's see. Can't do it here because we're in spot color. But when you're doing the color picker, and right here, I just chose that color. You see that warning sign up there? That means currently this is RGB that I picked off of. That's the color. But that warning sign right there means you cannot produce that in CMYK. And so it gave me a little square right here. It's a little bit darker and duller than this color. This is a video color, this is an ink color. So whenever you see this, it's a gamut warning, G-A-M-U-T. It means there's a problem with the choice in color based on the process that you're gonna have it printed with. So always keep an eye on that right there. And that's another reason why, Andre, yours shifted color a little bit when you went over to CMYK, is because you can't produce that in CMYK. But we didn't worry about it because we were coming to do spot color. Okay, how'd I do? There's a thing in here called trapping, which we don't have to worry about anymore. The printer and the computers take care of it for us. But you should know about it. When two colors abut each other, you see those little white areas or grayish areas? Those would not appear on the printing press. What happens is, when you send this out to make plates, the computer knows it's built into the process, and it's when it goes to the printer's computer, his computer then will set what's called a trap. And what happens with a trap is this dot right here, just because the burgundy is darker than the orange, will probably be just a tiny bit bigger, 1/4 of a point bigger than what you specified. Not big enough so you see any difference, but it makes that dot bigger so that the very edge here that's anti-aliased on screen, we don't want that anti-alias. So what it's going to do is it's going to make the dot bigger, and the burgundy will spread out just a little bit. Trapping and spreading is what it's called. And so when it does that, the trap covers up any kind of misalignment. The printer knows, the better quality press, the less misalignment there's going to be. And so he sets the trap based on his press. We used to always have to call the printer and say, what are your trap specs? And we would have to go in like the Illustrator or whatever and set it as part of the process. But luckily you don't need to do that anymore.
In what file format would you send this file to a printer?
I would just save it just like this and send it to the printer. Now there's a few other very technical details which we don't have to get into as designers, but whenever you're printing spot color, you need to talk to your printer ahead of time so you know exactly what to do, so you avoid any kind of problems later on in the process. But I think it's a beautiful way of doing color. It's a way of producing things you just can't produce on in CMYK. When color is everything, what they do is actually when you've got you need to learn to do this when you're dealing with a client's specific patented color for their logo or whatever they want. If you can't produce that green, if you look at Wired magazine, they used to produce all kinds of wild colors. they'd have regular CMYK, but especially there'd be one color they would produce in a magazine that you knew was not done with CMYK. And they actually used a 5-color press to do that. And what it did was it put down CMYK, but every place where they had that wild non-processed color, they actually had a 5th metal plate. And so they would have to go in and, well, the computer would do it and extract any place where that overprinted a color and would leave holes where that brilliant green was supposed to be. And the 5th plate, as it went through the 4 rollers of CMYK, it reached the 5th roller, and the 5th roller would be loaded up with those brilliant, magentas and oranges and greens. Sometimes they do it with metallics, like a copper or a silver. The spot varnishes, they're not done with a knockout. They overprint the color that's there, but that's also a 5th plate. And it's produced almost the same way as what we did here. You produce a spot varnish plate, and it puts that color down on top of the CMYK. So all these processes we're using right here will be used throughout all the work you do probably. You can even produce an embossing plate that's a little bit thicker. And if you need to emboss something, specialty ads, sometimes they're embossed. And so when it goes through, it actually is a big, heavy plate that squishes it and raises the paper up. So that's also a spot color. Okay, the channel. I think we got it all. Like I said, there's many technical details you have to work with your printer on, but now you know the basics of spot color printing. This can also be used to create silkscreen. What it does is it does exactly what we did, and when it comes to exposing, it'll print the plate as black. So for this silkscreen, it will produce this. And you'll put that into the camera, and it will expose the silk screen using this picture, and you'll get exactly where you want your stuff to print, your ink to print. It produces literally a screen the ink goes through. Do you remember the video on that? On the silk screening? Okay. So later on in this project, we're going to convert this back, believe it or not, to CMYK. So make sure you save what you have. Now, that's it for spot color for today. How did you do in terms of projects? Have you made selections?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Tessa, I saw yours. What were your 3 selections? Tell the group.
I had the Women's March, and I had, let me pull up my document. The Women's March, the March for Our Lives, and the No Human Being is Illegal. But
So which one do you want to do?
I think I'm going to do the Women's March.
Okay.
I don't know if there's actually one happening in 2020, but I'm going to pretend like there's one happening in 2020 in Washington.
Yes. I think it's a good choice for you too. You've got 2 projects now on
Refugees.
Yes, refugees. And so I think I would change it just to make sure there's some variety in the portfolio.
Yeah.
And as you're doing this stuff, make sure you're looking at images, thinking about images that are going to allow you to use these brilliant spot colors. Okay. Erin, what did you choose?
I chose Grandson. They're all bands. Grandson, We Are the Griswolds, and what was the last one called? And Youngblood. They're all new pop bands.
They're all what?
New pop punk bands.
Great. So you know who used to use spot color brilliantly on a couple of things was The Clash. A lot of the covers were horrible too.
Okay.
But I think that's what I'm thinking of. Like London Calling was done with brilliant spot color. Mario,
Okay.
which one are you preferring, Erin?
I really want to do Grandson
Okay.
just because he has some album covers that kind of like spot color already, so I feel like it would match his overall theme as an artist to like continue doing things with that.
All righty. Mario.
I'm gonna do a museum. So I was interested in doing the Museum of Modern Art because that was like just the one I most recently went to, and like I really just enjoyed being in the museum itself, like with the energy and just all the art in there. So I actually got like inspiration from like I have a lot of Pablo Picasso in my Pinterest page because a lot of his work's in there.
Yeah.
So I was trying to like get inspiration from his work to kind of create just I guess like what my look would be like inspired from his work. There's also just other things that I was like I have a few sketches for just different types of ideas, and I'm trying to figure out which one would be the best to bring to life with spot color.
Okay, yeah. That's the big thing, especially when you're dealing with an artist, a particular artist, is does he translate over to spot color? He could. It depends on what the designer does.
You know, Picasso does well, like a lot of I mean I'm sure you know like with the faces and stuff, he uses a lot of colors for all of it. So I think that could definitely come to life in spot color.
Yeah, he's got his the colors and also very distinctive shapes.
Yeah,
Which
yeah,
you
yeah.
as a designer, you can abstract pull those shapes out. You know, like his what's the was it an ox that he painted with light? Or no, he's got a lot of pictures of cows or oxen. And they are kind of, or the women who are, their faces are all distorted, cubic.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe you can do something with spot color and those specific telltale shapes for him too.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Deanne.
So my three were the Me Too movement, Lil Peep, who is an
Yeah.
avant-garde artist, and the Black Lives Matter movement.
Okay.
I think I'm between the Me Too and Lil Peep for my decision. I think the Me Too has cool. I was looking up on Pinterest, like a lot of my pins are of like the art that they have, just what people have created, and it's very like it probably is mostly done in spot color, or at least like it's very geometric. At least the ones that I found, and then Lil Peep just has like a really cool his image, his face. Like it'd be cool to put him on a poster and kind of have
Yeah,
words
Peeps is
around it.
always
Like
colorful.
yeah, like I can just see it. So those are the two that I'm between right now.
Good. Eva.
John, you're still recording the feed if you record it.
What's that?
You're still recording.
Oh. Thank you.